some people have already pointed out to me that the people who are now starting to form part of this interim government actually were part of the old establishment, and that is something they do not want to see at any cost. I mean, it is an interim government, if you like, and it will be just for a period, but people are very concerned that the old habits and the old people are there and will be steering the new government and the new country. So it's not really going to everyone's liking at the moment, but you know, this is early days, and it's basically important that there's some kind of bedrock of political movement set up here to get the country and get this area moving again.
Gaddafi himself and his sons notoriously blaming the media, and us in particular, for giving the wrong impression of what's going on. How are the media being received there, Tony? When you walk into the streets, what are people saying to you?
Well, people are being, they're mobbing you, literally. They're so happy. And, you know, 42 years of basically being forced to be silent, couldn't speak openly, could not speak their minds for fear of being killed or tortured or imprisoned. Well, that's all ended now. People want to tell you their story. They want to tell you what it's been like for the last 42 years. People who've lost loved ones, people who've been tortured and beaten, people who've been oppressed. They tell you everything. You're mobbed everywhere, you're cheered, you're patted on the back, and basically you can actually be 24 hours a day, have coffee with people here because they're so friendly and so happy, so relieved, I think. I haven't seen anything quite like this before.
Tony Birdley live in Benghazi. Thanks, Tony. And as Tony was saying there's some sort of order reasserting itself in Benghazi. But on the border with Tunisia, we're getting reports of some disruptions. Libyan customs officers apparently deserting their posts in the town of Ras Ajdir. Our correspondent Nazanin Moshiri is there and joins us. Naz, what's going on?
Well, I can confirm that Libyan custom officials, according to sources here, have left their posts on the other side of the border, which is very close to where we are right now. But the situation there is the fact that the police and army are still very much in control of that border, heavy military presence on the other side. We are seeing an unprecedented humanitarian situation here in the last 24 hours. About 10,000 Egyptians left from this border on Saturday. We are expecting thousands more. We're also hearing about the potential of thousands of Palestinians coming as well. We can't confirm those reports, but we understand they cannot leave via the Egyptian border, so they're trying to make their way here right now. We can also tell you that we saw a Tunisian army helicopter flying above us a short while ago. I have to say it's the first time that I've seen that, so we don't know whether they're just monitoring the situation here, just seeing how many people are on the other side of the border safely without provoking the Libyans. But this is very much a developing situation here.
Naz, the Tunisian government themselves, have they made any comments, statements? Have you seen much organisation on your side of the border?
I have to say the organisation of what is going on here has been pretty poor. The Tunisians say they are doing their best, but they have their own economic problems. They need help from the international community. We have seen some European Commission people here, some Red Crescent people here, but many of the Egyptians coming across have nowhere to sleep. There aren't enough tents, not enough food and water for them. There are coaches, as you can see behind me, but where are these coaches going to take these people to ports and airports? But what is going to happen to them? Many of them are exhausted, they have no money, their important items were taken away from them on the other side of the border. They just have the clothes on their backs and whatever they could bring it in terms of luggage. But it is a difficult situation for them right now.
All right, Nazanin Moshiri in Tunisia. Thanks, Naz. Now, a little earlier on, my colleague Sami Zaidan spoke to a resident of Libya's third largest city about who's in control there following continuing standoffs with an army unit. Khalid in Misrata told us that the security forces have now been driven out of that city.
The demonstrators now are in control, complete control of the city. There is no existence of any interference from the government, since all the government apparatus have been withdrawn to outside Misrata.
Right, we've heard at the same time that there have been clashes ongoing between some military units around the city and between protesters. What's going on that front?
Yes, my brother, there are some clashes from time to another between the some of the demonstrators who moved from the city to the headquarters of the battalion, which is called Hamza Battalion, and sometimes there are some clashes which resulting in deaths and wounded from both parties.
Are there any negotiations going on for this military unit to either withdraw or come over to the other side?
Yesterday there was some talk about negotiations, but this will be clearer today, especially after the general who's asking his troops to interfere.
As you probably know, a rival administration has been put together by the former Justice Minister. How much support is there for that administration in Misrata?
The reaction I saw about with regards to the formation of this transition government all indicate that it's accepted and positive reaction with this initiative, because they consider that this is an initiative that was taken in the right time and the right circumstances, especially with regards to the respect that the ex-Minister of Justice enjoys from the Libyan people. And I consider that this is a very successful initiative and will be accepted from all of the liberated cities in the Libyan West.
Now, we want to show you a little bit of video that we have obtained from protesters in Al-Baida. This is a city in the east of Libya. It fell to the protesters some time ago. And these protesters, as you can see, celebrating and cheering, but more significantly, they claim to have seized tanks and weapons from the army, which they're displaying to us here, including rockets and shells. And they've been telling us that they plan to march on to Tripoli. So the potential for confrontation still there. We'll update you if we hear any more reports from this particular crew. Now, on the international scene, diplomats believe that up to 2,000 people may already have died in the crackdown on these anti-government protesters. And now the UN has voted unanimously to impose sanctions on the regime as a consequence. Now, the UN resolution demands, among other things, an end to the violence and a recognition of the legitimate demands of the people. It also calls for an investigation into the bloodshed and for attacks on civilians to be referred to the International Criminal Court. Add to that an end to all arms sales to Libya. Kristen Salumi has this report from New York.
Will those in favor of the draft resolution contained in document S/2011/95 please raise their hand?
It took all day for the Security Council to reach an agreement, but in the end, the message to Libya's Muammar Gaddafi from the Security Council was strong and unified. All 15 members agreed to impose sanctions. They called for an end to the violence.
For his statement.
It takes new steps against the use of mercenaries by the Libyan government to attack its own people. And for the first time ever, an egregious human rights situation to the International Criminal Court. As President Obama said today, when a leader's only means of staying in power is to use mass violence against its own people, he has lost the legitimacy to rule and needs to do what is right for his country by leaving now.
The resolution refers Libya to the vision some delegations initially opposed.
We deplore the use of force, which is totally unacceptable. We earnestly hope that calm and stability are restored at the earliest without any further violence.
The resolution had the support of Libya's own delegation to the UN, a fact that swayed some delegations to vote for it.
The Tripoli regime no longer has any credibility. It goes without saying that this resolution represents moral support for our people faced with the regime firing on them.
This is just the second time that the Security Council has asked the International Criminal Court to investigate a country.
and the first time that the request had the unanimous support of the Council. Ambassadors said they wanted to send a clear, swift, and strong message to Muammar Gaddafi and his inner circle, but it remains to be seen just who is listening. Kristen Salumi, Al Jazeera, the United Nations.
Well, this sanctions package is very specific and targeted at specific individuals, and these are those individuals. Aside from Gaddafi himself, I'll come to him in a moment, the most visible face of the Libyan regime in the past couple of weeks has been his son, Saif al-Islam Gaddafi. He is the second oldest son of Muammar. He's being accused of inciting violence. Another of his sons, Saadi Gaddafi, is also being targeted by the UN. He's the commander of the country's special forces, the people that have been cracking down most on the opposition protesters. And of course, the man himself, Muammar Gaddafi, in charge for more than 40 years now, under fire from all over the world by world leaders for his human rights abuses. There is another son, Khamis, who's on the radar as well. He commands some military units as well that have allegedly opened fire on protesters. And he also has a daughter who's on this list. Her name is Aisha Muammar Gaddafi. The UN Secretary General says these sanctions, though, may not even stop here.
I commend the Security Council for its decisive action today. In the days ahead, we will look for similarly decisive steps from the UN General Assembly and the international community as a whole. Today's measures are tough. In the coming days, if needed, even bolder action may become necessary.
Well, with me now is Tariq Youssef, a senior research fellow at the Dubai School of Government. You know, we've been sitting here for the past few days watching this gradually unfold, and every day we think that more people are deserting him and that his days are numbered, and yet there he still is. Is it all over soon, do you think?
I think it's going to be all over soon. The statements by the UN Council, certainly by the British government, the American government, the French government in the last couple of days suggest that they view Gaddafi as no longer a legitimate negotiator, representative of the Libyan people, and certainly not someone who has the legitimacy domestically to rule the country. There is no way out of this with the loss of domestic and international legitimacy except for him and his core supporters to leave.
Him and his core supporters have been talking about stern resistance for some time. And of course, we are hearing and seeing pictures of violence against the protesters by some forces. But the scale of violence that we were fearing doesn't seem to be appearing. Is he losing his heart?
He's probably losing his heart, but he's also under immense international pressure. Referring some of the violence against the Libyan citizens to the International Criminal Court as a possibility is not just a message to Gaddafi, but all those around him, that there will be consequences after him for anyone.